Chapter 3, Part 1. Inside, the dark carriage was a rather entertaining sight. In fact, it was a small room decorated in dark, mostly blue tones. It was very gloomy and extremely luxurious. The fabric covering the seats looked like soft crystal, and it was extremely uncomfortable for Jack to sit on it. He was afraid that it could crumble into dust from any sudden movement. The windows were unusual and very mysterious. The unusual thing about them was that they were blood-red glass drawings with large white flowers in the center, and they were mysterious because no matter how hard Jack tried, he did not manage to open any of them. The latches were the simplest. He had seen this kind hundreds of times, that they did not react to his attempts to move them from their place. It was very strange because everything else in the carriage was in excellent condition, and such a defect seemed totally unfathomable against the background of general perfectness. Besides, Jack exerted considerable strength to open them, and he was not puny at all. As a result, he could not even turn around to look at his father's house for the last time and mentally say goodbye to the streets of his native county. On the other hand, perhaps it was for the best. It was terribly difficult for him to say goodbye to Herbert, and the contemplation of how the distance between them was growing could even bring him to tears. He did not want to cry right now. He had no right to do that. He was the one who made this decision, so he felt obliged to follow it with dignity. For about an hour he thoughtlessly listened to the sounds outside, but all he heard was the measured clop of the unicorn's hoofs quickly stepping over, and the sound of wheels on the uneven road. Surprisingly, he did not feel any jolting, and at some point he dozed off without realizing that, putting his head on a ridiculously fragile blue pillow. As often happens on the road, when he woke up he could not say exactly how long he had slept, but it was quite clear to him that something strange had happened to the dark carriage while he was in oblivion. The strange thing was that he no longer heard the sound of hoofs on the road, or the muffled rumble of wheels. He could think that the carriage had stopped, but no, it was moving, but in some completely inexplicable way. It was as if something was pulling it through the water column, or vice versa. Something was carrying it on invisible wings right through the air. Jack made another attempt to open the window, and to his great surprise, this time it was successful. The latch slid aside so easily that he had no doubt left that it was in perfect order from the very beginning. Someone just did not want him to look out immediately after leaving, and that's why the window turned out to be blocked. He did not have time to think about the reasons for this rather rude decision, as the view outside the window captured his attention. It is worth noting that at first he could hardly believe his own eyes. For the dark carriage was in the air indeed. It was flying straight across the sky in an unknown direction, drowning in shining snow-white clouds. The cloud resembled fluffy cotton candy and looked fantastic against the background of a crystal-clear sky, transparent as ice. Jack did not understand immediately what kind of power was holding the carriage in the air, and at such an impressive distance from the ground. Leaning out of the window, he saw that the unicorns remained wingless. They were just running along the cloud featherbed, apparently not feeling any discomfort, and pulled the body of the carriage along with them without any effort. Some persistent thought was impatiently beating in Jack's head, like a nimble animal, but he could not catch it by the tail in any way. Finally had to give up, but he did not take his eyes off the window for a minute until the very end of the journey. Without a doubt, it was an incredible trip. The cloudy ocean slowly floating under the piercing blue of a daytime sky would easily have convinced Jack that he was only dreaming if he had not felt the cool wind on his face, which was too real to be mistaken for an illusion. He knew somehow that the clouds and sky he was observing no longer belonged to the world where he had lived all his life. At first glance everything was the same, but he understood in his soul that something was still different. The moment the dark carriage crossed the border between the mortal world and Kmir, he obviously overslept. Although, even if he had been awake, it is unlikely he would have been able to notice anything special, because the windows were probably still blocked at that moment. He did not see Neadersham either. The Lerk probably drove the carriage from a special closed platform on the front of the carriage, which could not be seen from inside the cabin. It was something like a coachman's seat, but more comfortable, and with a reliable rectangular roof. Frankly, Jack was glad of his privacy. The Lerk had done nothing wrong to him, but he knew that he was completely devoted to his master, and it would be stupid to count on his talkativeness or frankness. The sunset was already close when the carriage began to descend.